Hello and welcome to our channel. Today, we are looking at the summary of an old French novel titled, La Princesse de Clèves, written by Madame de la Fayette, in the 17th century. Stay tuned. La Princesse de Clèves is a novel created in 1678 by Madame de la Fayette. Commonly named France's first historical story, the job affected the course of French fiction. It is set throughout the 16th century reign of Henry II and is the story of a just young wife, who subdues her passion for a young nobleman. With this easy tale informed in dignified, pragmatical prose, La Fayette introduced the book of personality, a lot more than a tale of thwarted love. It is an intimate psychological picture. Numerous 18th and 19th century writers used the novel as a version, in its representation of the princess's relocation from the protected world of her family to the globe of intrigue and also national politics in the court. The tale informs of the newly married Mademoiselle de Chartres as well as her tacit, unrequited love affair with the battle each other of Nemours. Noting a significant change far from the absurd love, impractical situations, and rub-satisfied endings of the time, La Princesse de Clèves overthrew the paradigm of the book in support of an even more reasonable story, within a dialogue that expressed characters' inner thoughts, feelings as well as a couple of subplots to sidetrack from the primary narrative. Evaluate the imperial court of King Henry II from October 1558 to November 1559. The story is told in the omniscient third person. Mademoiselle de Chartres is a 16-year-old ingenue who gave court by her mom, Madame de Chartres, to be wed to an appropriate aristocrat and even much more ideal, to a royalty. Mademoiselle stops at a fashion jewelry shop, where she encounters the royal Prince de Clèves, the second son of the Duke of Nevers. With a solitary look, royal Prince Clèves drops head over heels crazy with Mademoiselle. When he introduces himself to her at the court complying with day, the prince recognizes her and desires Mademoiselle to be his better half. However, he is worried that Madame will refuse, seeing that he isn't the eldest son of the Duke of Nevers. At the same time, the Duke does not desire his child to marry Mademoiselle, which bugs Madame, taking into consideration just how ideal she considers her child to be. Madame sets up potential weddings for her child with two various other suitors, the Chevalier of Guise and the Duke of Montpensier. Neither exercises and soon, it has been scheduled Mademoiselle to marry the Prince of Clèves. Mademoiselle isn't particularly fond of the nondescript prince yet appreciates his royal air of dignity enough to marry him. Before the wedding, the royal prince identifies a feeling of indifference in his new bride-to-be. He detects that she does not reciprocate his dedicated love in equivalent step. This troubles the royal prince, particularly when Mademoiselle confesses that she feels no genuine passion for him or any other man. Still, a marvelous wedding event ceremony and also an extravagant dinner party are held at the Louvre in Paris. The king and also queen go too. Mademoiselle ends up being the Princess of Clèves. Months later on, the princess goes to the wedding event of the Duke of Lorraine at court, throughout which the princess becomes acquainted with the debonair battle each other of Nemours, that is promptly fascinated of the princess. The princess returns house to tell her mother regarding the Duke. Madame immediately acknowledges her little girl's radiant excitement as genuine love, also if the princess doesn't recognize it herself. As a protective step, Madame tells the princess to avoid the Duke, for he is reported to be entailed with Mary Stuart, the Dauphin's partner and Queen of Scotland. The princess, regardless of being in love with the Duke, restricts their interactions to assignations in her salon. Quickly, Madame drops ill. On her deathbed, she advises the princess to avoid temptation as well as remain devoutly loyal to her partner. She presents that being virtuous is far much easier than it seems, and the consequences of transgression are much more difficult to regulate. Mentally ravaged by her mom's eventual fatality, the princess is sent to reside in a town, where she avoids the Duke at all expenses. When the Duke gets here to see her, he's averted by the prince. Despite her strong feelings, the princess sours on the duke when a scandal occurs. The princess finds a love letter she thinks has been sent to the duke by his unrevealed girlfriend. It is not. It was indicated for the princess' uncle, Vidame de Chartres. This misunderstanding saps the princess' love for the duke, further driving a wedge in between them. The duke is then entrusted with providing documents that verify he did not write the letter, therefore reinforcing his love for the princess. Likewise, this also rekindles the princess' self-confidence in the duke. When Mademoiselle ultimately confesses her love for another man, the royal prince is infuriated at the idea of his better half's adulterous sensations. The royal prince coaxes the identification of the princess' new love and sends out a spy to keep a close watch on the duke. When the spy reports back, the prince is persuaded that his bride-to-be is not just crazy with the duke, however has consummated their connection too. The royal prince drops ill with a raving high temperature and a busted heart as well as passes away. Before he does so, the prince berates the duke for his suffering. He begs the princess not to marry the duke after he dies. Now, unburdened by her mother's dreams as well as the irons of marriage, the princess is cost-free to do as she selects. The duke continues his caring courtship of her, as well as although she professes her sincere love for him, she remains to reject his marital developments. Her feeling of virtue and ethical etiquette dictates such, yet she likewise believes the duke is guilty for the royal prince's fatality. Upon recovering from a serious illness, the princess opts to join an annual convent, enabling her to maintain her distance from the duke for months of the year. After several years, the duke's love for the princess ultimately subsides. Despite being reasonably young, the princess passes away in privacy. Apart from being applauded as one of the foremost stories in the background of literary works, and also lauded for laying the plan for the emotional novel, La Princesse de Clèves is likewise France's inaugural historic novel. Historic numbers populate the tale, offering it a plain honesty the world had actually not seen before. An exciting read. We have come to the end of today's presentation. Please join us next week for another package. Leave us a comment below, and please don't forget to click the subscribe button, so you can get all our exciting videos. Thanks for watching. Goodbye.